Great. So thanks everybody for joining. Today we're going to go through a lot of new things already available in Ellie and coming to Ellie soon. And as Johanna said, at the end of the session, feel free to, we'll have a Q&A and you can write in the chat any questions you have and we'll go through them at the end of the session. Maybe shortly about me. So my name is Stan. I do product and AI at Ellie. I'm responsible for our enterprise functionality, integrations, testing all things AI, and also prototyping and seeing what is possible with the tool and where should we go in the future. Overall, I've been in the tech space for 11 years, 5 years working in data from cloud to embedded, etc. And kind of one thing I want to bring up first is kind of to mention is that over the last, let's say, year, Ellie has been evolving quite a lot. And Ellie lets you do more than ever before. As Johan has mentioned, we started with conceptual modeling, then we added logical, now we have physical modeling, we have integrations, and next year we're also going to start expanding on transformational modeling. So Ellie becomes a much bigger tool than maybe some of you have used it when you just started. And one thing that we're also focusing quite a lot on is enabling your workflows by building various integrations with tools. We'll go through some of them today during the session, but as you can see, that list is growing and we're going to be adding more and more things as we go. And please let us know if some of these are interesting to you, of course. All right. So today's agenda, we're going to first go through our AI-assisted modeling. Then we're going to see how from concepts and conceptual model, we can end up building SQL code. We'll show you our Microsoft workflow, which we've been building with some of our customers quite actively in the last couple of months. Then we'll, of course, go through our analytics engineering workflow, showing you some things around DBT, documenting source models, etc. I'll show you some new features that we've just released in the last couple of months that you might not have known about. And then we'll look at our roadmap so you know where we're going in the coming months. Let's start with AI-assisted data modeling. And kind of the overall thing why we started doing this is we saw that there is this data to business gap. And what I mean by that is if you're a data modeler, if you're a domain expert in data, it may be sometimes very hard to understand what are your domain experts, like business people, talking about, because they have their own domain of expertise. So it can be hard to sometimes understand what exactly are they talking about. And we figured that we could use AI to kind of streamline this process, because large language models, they are great generalists. Whatever topic you talk about them, they're really good at understanding what do you actually mean. And as such, we figured, hey, why don't we play around with AI and see what type of workflows we could help with for our customers. And kind of what we saw quite quickly is that AI is really good at, as I mentioned, at understanding anybody, whether it's a doctor, a salesperson, HR, construction engineer, anybody from any domain. AI would be really good at translating that into something data modeling related. So for example, if you talk to a salesperson and they would start talking about SQLs, it has nothing to do with code, it's sales qualifies leads, etc. So I'm going to show you a quick demo of how this works. There's of course a couple of workflows around it. And while this is not available straight away for our customers, you can contact me or our sales and we can enable it for your environment. So this is my Ellie environment and I'm going to press this try AI button. And the idea here is to not maybe make the final model, right? The idea here is to gather, to brainstorm, to gather some information from our domain experts. And kind of one cool thing that this technically enables is for somebody who maybe never modeled before, that they could try and build their first model, see if it's accurate, change things, and our AI assistants will help you. So one of the flows, the one I'm showing you right now, is called text to model. And the idea here is that you can provide long-term text of information, for example, your requirements. You can also upload a file. It can be, for example, one of our customers was testing this with GDPR regulation. But just for the sake of a demo, I'll also show you another way how you can use it to brainstorm, where you can just ask AI to provide you a set of entities. So let's call it demo model for November webinar. And let's say suggest 20 entities for HubSpot CRM. And I'll press next. And now we have an AI agent that looks at the request and based on the request suggests you entities. So if you provide an actual long set of information, for example, your internal requirements, it would actually look at all the things possible in your text that could be potentially entities like customer, transport, etc. Here I just requested it for suggestions. It suggested me 20 entities related to HubSpot CRM. That is actually another cool thing. Large language models know a lot of things around the world and how they work, so they can provide pretty good insights for brainstorming as well. So I'll select all of these entities and I'll press next. And now we have another AI agent that kind of looks at the initial text, looks at the entities that I have selected, and it will try to create an initial version of the model. This is actually another cool thing that we're testing internally related to vectorized databases and semantic similarity. So we can see that we already have existing entities, company and procedure, that could be related, like organization could be replaced with company, etc. So let me do that. And now our AI is gonna create the first version of the model for you. And the model looks something like a model. And then you can of course continue and actually organize it the way you want. And you can also chat with our chatbot where we actually taught it how to model. So it can the idea is, imagine you're a business person who has never modeled before. You can chat with our bot and slowly build the model as you have the conversation. And it can also explain any model you have. So our AI can look at the model, at the entities, at the relationships, not just within this canvas, but also, for example, at metadata fields of entities in the glossary, and based on that explain what the model is about, how the relationships are structured, etc. And the idea is that this is kind of a great starting point for people who don't know yet to model. So you could ask somebody to explain how a certain thing works in your organization. They could model, provide all this feedback, and kind of build the first draft. And then you as a data modeler could then go and check and ask only questions. You don't have to facilitate the whole conversation. Instead, you can just kind of ask them to start doing it first by themselves, and then you could kind of check and only do corrections. All right, so that is our quick demo of AI function, some of the AI functionality we have from the top-down approach. And let's continue. So another thing I want to show you, as I mentioned, Ellie has evolved. So we first only started with conceptual modeling, but now then we added logical, but now we also have physical modeling. And at the end of the day, what it means is that we can offer you something like this, where you as a customer can start by gathering your business requirements, working with your business context, creating your initial conceptual models. You can then convert them to your logical models, physical models, then maybe add some missing entities, define warehouse-specific data types, and we will actually create table statements for you, so actual code that you can then use in Snowflake or Fabric. So let me show you how this looks in practice, and let's do a quick demo. So here is my simple customer and sales order model. It looks something like this. You're probably very familiar with how a conceptual model looks in Ellie. The only thing maybe that I'll show is that I also added attributes. So we have different attributes within each entity. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the convert button, and I'll convert this model to a logical model. I'll save it in my personal folder just to not pollute our templates environment. Seems like I already have one, so let me create a unique name. And now I have my logical model. I'm going to go and convert it to a physical model within Ellie. Let me just have a unique name. And then I'll have a physical model like this. And the moment I define all the primary foreign key relationships and add the data types, you will actually be able to generate SQL code with a model. So I'll just show you what it means. So I'll just select the correct types just for the sake of it. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'll show you another model. But the idea is that as long as you set up your primary and foreign keys, you define your relationships and add the data types, we can actually create the whole create table statement for you. So let me just show you how I would do it quickly. Let's say product category. So okay, now I have one relationship somewhat figured, but I quickly did it for you just to see how it would look at the end. So if you kind of prepare your relationships, make sure all the data types are set, and you have configured the primary and foreign keys, the model will look, let me just open it, will look something like this, all right? And the cool part is that I can press this generate button, and we will actually create working SQL code from this model that you can then go put to your Snowflake and actually create this model. I'm gonna show you how this looks in practice. So let me create a new worksheet in my Snowflake environment. I will select test database. Let's actually create quickly. Yeah, we can work with this one. I'll just create quickly a new schema just for this demo. So demo webinar. And then let me go back to my worksheets. I'll again select the database and the schema we just created. And now I'm gonna run all of the commands. And what currently happens is all the things that we design within Ellie are actually being created in our Snowflake. So if we go back to our database and we go to stand test, I'll open our schema that we just created, and we can see that all of the tables with all the relationships and primary foreign keys have been set in Snowflake. So that's kind of the cool part, that now you can see you can have a direct workflow right within Ellie, where you start with your business people, you model your conceptual, logical, and physical models, and then you can actually use this information as code and create your tables within a warehouse. All right, let's move to our next section about Microsoft. So over the last couple of months, we've been working really hard with our close customers and kind of trying to figure out a workflow between Ellie and the Microsoft stack. We're talking about Purview, which is the data catalog, DevOps for CI/CD, and Microsoft Fabric. And we're getting really close to enabling a full workflow between Microsoft products and Ellie. And Ellie kind of ends up being like this easy interface on top of your Microsoft stack, making it easy to identify new things for your data catalog, like entities, sending your visual designs from Ellie to CI/CD, to Azure DevOps, and also reverse engineering what you've built already or what you have in your Fabric environment into Ellie as physical models. Let's start with Purview. So this is something we plan to release by the end of the year, and it will be a direct integration between Ellie and Purview. There will be a UI-based mapping, so you don't need to set up any scripting. You can just connect your Purview environment with Ellie through our UI, and you'll be able to sync glossaries between the tool. You'll be able to set how often should these synchronizations happen, and also set which of the glossaries should be master and which should be the destination. And then, of course, as we just released our folders feature, we will be also adding multi-glossary support to this functionality. Just before I show you a demo, I want to go through a couple of synchronization options that we have. And this is applicable not just to Purview, but also to other data catalogs that we'll be adding in the coming months, for example, Colibra. So the idea here is that you can set which tool is master. For example, in this diagram, we have Ellie as master. And that means that all the entities that exist, and that means that the glossary in Ellie will be kind of, all the information there will always be kind of the single source of truth. So in an integration like this, whenever you add a new entity in Ellie or make changes to an entity that exists in Ellie, it will automatically, as you said in the integration, will be brought also to Purview, and you'll be able to, and kind of everything in Purview will be exactly the same as in Ellie. You can also do it the other way around. So say you have worked on a certain domain in Ellie, you've modeled, it is now well defined, and you want Purview to become the single source of truth for that domain. You can also set that, and in that case, Purview will be master, and all the information in Purview will be the single source of truth. But you can also do something much more complex, as we're adding now our subfolders and subglossaries functionality. So you can do a structure like this, where, for example, you're designing a new domain and you're identifying artifacts as you model. In that case, you can set Ellie as master. When you already have a set domain, you can set purview as master. But you can also work with your data product specific glossaries, for example. And if it's a bit more technical and you mainly work in purview, you can always bring those assets into Ellie. And for a specific data product glossary, let's say purview will be master. And you can set all these settings right within the integration without having to code anything. So without further ado, I'm going to go and show you a demo of how that works in practice. All right, so my data catalog is opening, and also I'm going to log into my environment. So this is sort of an empty environment. I only have one entity customer in my environment. Let me go to the connectors, and here we have a purview connector already set up. And let me just show you what you can do with it. So within the connector, through the UI, you can directly select which specific glossary you would like to use. And then you can also, via the UI, map all the metadata fields you have in Ellie with your purview environment. So for example, here I've said that name in purview should be entity name in Ellie. I've set definition as description in Ellie. And for now, I haven't added any extra fields, but you can add any text fields from your purview environment as a mapping to a certain Ellie metadata field. You can also automate things. So you can set the synchronization type. For now, it's just master to destination. And you can define which of the tools for this specific glossary is master. So in my case, I'll set Ellie as master. And then I'll set, you can kind of set synchronization to happen, let's say every night, every weekend. But just for the sake of demo, I'll set it that it happens every minute. And then I'll make sure that the automation is enabled. So now I'm going to go and create quickly a new model. Actually, let's use, I'll create a new model. Let's say demo for the webinar, and I'll put it to our general space. So we already have one entity customer, but let's say person can be a customer. It's a one-to-one relationship. Let's say customer can make a purchase. And we're basically modeling right inside Ellie and kind of trying to identify what assets we need, what terms we need within our Ellie glossary. But as I do that, because we have the integration, the same things will also automatically appear in our purview. So let's see if it happens straight away. I'm just gonna open our webinar glossary. So it takes a minute to speed up a process. I'll just go to connectors and sync to purview. And now if all goes well, yep, all my entities have also shown up here. So that's the idea, that you can kind of, if you connect the tools together, we will automatically kind of keep updating things. If any definitions change, the metadata fields, you add new entities, they will automatically be added to your data catalog and vice versa. So you can, for example, if you haven't connected your data catalog to Ellie, you can start by doing that, bring all your glossary terms from a catalog into Ellie, and then make sure that your catalog stays as the single source of truth. All right, let's continue with our demos. And let's quickly look into Fabric. So the idea here is that you can do a couple of things in Ellie with Fabric. First, you can bring your existing models, schemas into Ellie as physical models. I'll show you that. And the other thing, well, I won't show you today, but something we're building something we're building is an integration with also Azure DevOps. So the idea is that whenever you design something in Ellie or you alter something in your Ellie design, you could send it to Azure DevOps, and then somebody could check from the code side and then create or make changes within your Microsoft Fabric. So let's do a quick demo. So I'm gonna log in into my environment. Let's see, can I log in like this? Yep. And let me create a new model for you. So I'll create a new physical model. Just has to be a unique name. All right. And I will connect to our Microsoft Fabric database. I've already set up a connection previously, just for the sake of saving time. But let me connect. And if all has been set up correctly, we should get our database connection. Okay, so I'm gonna select our Ellie database, and let me take our football schema. And what this will do is it will create a new physical model in Ellie, as I was creating a new model, but it will actually bring all that information from my Fabric environment right into Ellie. So I can see my football schema. We have teams, players, matches, and player statistics. All the relationships have been brought, all the data types, attributes, primary key information, etc. And I can basically see all this information right within Ellie, right? The integration brings all the information from your warehouse right into Ellie. And then the other thing you can do, something as I shown you already with Snowflake, but we're also going to be adding with Fabric, is the ability to actually generate Fabric code. So when I press generate, I'm going to generate a lakehouse code for Fabric, which also works, and you can actually run it in your worksheet. All right, let's continue with our demos. So another thing, and that's kind of the one thing that we were promoting for this webinar, is our analytics engineering workflow. And we basically talked to a bunch of people who work with DBT, who do analytics engineering, and we kind of listened to what are maybe some of the challenges they have in their day-to-day work. And we kind of decided to, we thought that we saw that with Ellie we could probably add a bit of value specifically to their workflows, and also that would kind of connect the rest of the analytics engineers with the rest of the people working in Ellie. So we wanted to create a single place where all the raw data and reusable transformations could be documented right within Ellie. We wanted to make documentation easy. So for example, say you have a schema and that is very poorly documented or not documented at all. We want to make it easy for you to understand what is in that schema, what and how could you use it. We wanted to make boring parts of the analytics engineer's job easy and fast. Specifically, what I'm talking about is the initial transformations like select statements, etc. And we wanted to create overall a smooth integration for a workflow of somebody who is an analytics engineer working with a data warehouse, DBT, and now Ellie. And kind of here's a very high level overview how this works. So we load information from your Snowflake, the schema you have, for example. Then we'll take a sample from each table, and with our AI, we generate synthetic metadata for each table and overall schema. And I'll show you that in a second. We then let you select specific tables you would want to use for your transformation project. You can then select specific rows, columns you need, change the data type and alias, and then we will automatically create code that follows the DBT recommended code conventions that you can then push directly to GitHub, fetch it to your DBT Cloud or DBT Core in Visual Studio Code, and actually execute it and create the views you need, and creating this workflow within Ellie that works with the rest of this tooling that I show in this slide. All right, so let's move to the demo of this specific thing. So I'm going to open my environment. All right, it loaded. Cool. And I'm going to create a new source model. So this is something we don't have yet available for our customers, but if you're interested to be a POC customer, please let us know if you want to try the source model things we're building within Ellie. So a source model is basically a physical model, you could say. The only difference is that we want to make sure that people know it's a source model because it is a representation of something real within your warehouse, right? We're connecting to your warehouse and fetching a real database schema. And same as we did with Microsoft Fabric, you can also fetch information from Snowflake. So I'm going to connect to my Snowflake. I'll enter my credentials. And now, same as in Fabric, I can select the warehouse and the database. So let's say compute WH. Let's use our imaginary company, Acme Inc. And I'll select a normalized schema. And then I'm going to keep those on. Essentially, this is for generating synthetic metadata around your tables. And I'm going to press confirm. And this is again and I'll get an extra pop-up. Essentially, the system verifies that I'm okay to share sample data with our AI. And now I'm going to press confirm again. And now what we see is that the schema has already loaded. So quite often, of course, in something like Snowflake, you wouldn't actually have relationships between your tables. And now the table has loaded, the schema has loaded, and our AI is basically looking at sample information about each table and is generating example synthetic metadata. So we can already see with these blue things what a certain table means semantically. So it's a human readable name. So for example, if I open customers, customers is still generating. Let's open transactions. I can see that there's a semantic table name, a table description that a human can actually read and understand. And then for every column, we also generate descriptions. And also there are logical groups, which basically indicate how you could split this table further into, let's say, third normal form or further normalize it. Everything that is AI generated is blue to make sure that you know that this is not a real person that wrote it. It is AI that gives you a suggestion. But whenever you feel like something is correct or you want to make any changes, you can just make an edit and it will automatically change to black color, identifying that a real human has actually made the change. So this is kind of one very simple example just for the demo. And of course, these maybe if you would have a schema as simple like as this and well documented, it would be really easy to see which data you would like to use in your project. But let me open another example and show you where the value lies. So for example, this is COVID-19 data that I got from directly from Snowflake. They have like these free data sets. And as you can see, there is a lot of tables. They are not really well named. For example, we have names like public HDX ACAPS. I have no clue what that means. But if I see it and I check the semantic name, I can see that it's a global public health measures. Okay, that actually makes it much easier. But still, there's quite a lot of data, right? I don't know specifically which tables maybe I want to use. So I can click on this filtering tab, and I can actually select which based on a group that AI has identified. Some of the tables maybe I could use for my transformation project. So let's say we'll use healthcare infrastructure and capacity tables. All right, and we automatically can highlight. We automatically highlight the tables for you. Let's say for my transformation project, I want to use bulk data, healthcare infrastructure, stage daily healthcare metrics, and ICU bed occupancy data. And now I'm going to start my transformation project. So maybe a quick side note. So what we're working on right now here is our source models. And the idea here is that you load all your schemas into Ellie, and then you have kind of one place where all your schemas are documented, where people can work specifically on documentation. So in this model, you cannot really make any edits except for the metadata. So descriptions, logical groups, table name, and table description. And then when you kind of want to start a transformation project, you can select the specific tables you'd like to use in your specific project and create a transformation project. You can also add tables to your existing transformation projects. So let's say demo project for the webinar. Oh, I managed to, okay. Oh, seems like we have. All right, I'll create a demo project. And now all the tables that I have selected should be added also here. Okay, so we have 4 tables selected. And here is where I can start kind of creating my initial transformations or staging models, what you would call in DBT. So we have 4 tables, and I'm going to select that, okay, for my healthcare infrastructure by region, I need all the geographical information and maybe info about hospital beds. I think the data type is correct. Actually, let's change the number to int. And then let me see, country region, this is correct. Total number of hospital beds available. So maybe I'll change the alias from total hospital beds to total available hospital beds. And then I'll mark my table is ready. So as I do these kind of things, where I just select the columns I want to use, I change the data type and alias, we automatically create SQL code for you. So we support different dialects here specifically. But also, we have something cooler specifically for DBT where we'll actually create much more information and actually instantly workable code for your DBT project. So I've prepared one of the tables. Maybe I'll select a couple more just for the sake of the demo. Let me prep it. And then in these, let's just select all. And let's select all. Cool. So let's say I've kind of selected my initial data I need for my transformation project, and let's assume my project is ready to be started in DBT. So then what I can do is I can push to version control, and let's say I'll push to my repo in GitHub. Let's say it's going to be main. Actually, let's create new branch demo for the webinar. All right. And now the system will push to GitHub. I might not have set up for this. Oh no, it did. So now everything is pushed to GitHub. I can then go to my GitHub repo. Let me just select the correct organization. And I can see that just now something was pushed by me directly into GitHub. And then the idea is that you can fetch it either in your DBT Cloud or in your Visual DBT Core in Visual Studio Code and kind of continue the project. And the cool part is that this code actually works out of the box because we get the information directly from your Snowflake environment about the databases, the schemas, and all that. And as long as you've set up your initial DBT setup correctly, the code will work out of the box. So for example, for the sake of demo, I did one quick project where I selected a couple of tables I'd want to use for my transformation project. As you can see, within our model staging Snowflake folder, we've created these specific staging models. So basically, maybe for those not familiar with DBT, so each of these kind of represents a staging model within your DBT environment. And we also generate our sources YAML, which basically gives information about the warehouse and the schema, etc. And the cool part, as I said, is that the code actually works. So this I literally loaded from my GitHub repo. And if I do dbt run, it will actually create views within my Snowflake environment out of the box and will tell me that, okay, it succeeded. So the idea with this workflow is that we don't yet maybe generate actual transformations within Ellie for you through no-code UI, but you can start any transformation project within Ellie and everybody else will see what information is used, what are other people using, what other transformation projects they have done. And then we do all the boring parts for you. For example, creating the sources YAML file, generating initial select statements where you change all the data types and change aliases. And that code just works out of the box, which is pretty cool. All right, let's continue with the rest of the demo. So let's talk about some of the new features that we have launched recently, but maybe you are not aware of. So one thing that we actually launched just yesterday is folders and subglossaries, and this is a big release for us because it allows our enterprise customers to work across different domains within Ellie. So now, if you open your Ellie environment, you'll see this nice little folder tree on the left. All your collections are now folders, and every folder can have its own glossary, which means that you can have different definitions for different domains, for different data products, and you can really structure your work across a whole enterprise organization. We also added a new type of entities on a canvas, which we call foreign entities. And the idea here is that when you're using an entity from another folder or from another glossary, it becomes a foreign entity within your canvas. You can use entities that are restricted. So for example, you don't have write access to it, but you can still use it. So say you have a enterprise level glossary, which only a couple of people in your organization actually have write access to, for a reason, of course, because you want to make sure that everything is well defined and nobody makes any changes unless they are approved. Well, you can use these entities and that glossary within the whole Ellie within your whole organization when you use Ellie as linked entities. And if you realize that, let's say, a customer definition or attributes don't really work for your specific project or your specific subdomain, what you can always do is you can use our clone feature and kind of create your own version of the entity. and I'll show you a demo around it. So I have this imaginary company, Acme Demo, where I have created, kind of like an imaginary organization where we have different domains. So let me, for example, work with our sales and marketing domain. And let me create a new folder just to show you how this functionality works. Of course, I should never name a folder like this in real life. And kind of what you can do when you create a new folder or set folder settings is you can set which glossaries you would like your users to use. Because I'm in sales and marketing, I will select sales and marketing glossary. I will recommend our users within this specific folder to always try to use sales and marketing glossary. I will also set that the folder itself has its own glossary, so new entities can be created within it. And within permissions, I will inherit the permissions from our sales and marketing folder. So I can see that Mark Simmons, Jacob Russell, and admins, I'm an admin, actually have right access to this folder. All right, so my folder has been created. Within this folder, I can create other folders. I can create models, all the levels of models we have, and I also can create entities. Let me try to create one model to show you how foreign entities work. Demo model for webinar. All right, and let's say I want to add a customer entity to my model. What I see is that I have a couple of options. So I can create my own customer entity within this demo folder. But I can also use a suggested glossary term from sales and marketing. And there's also customer definitions in other glossaries. Because it is a suggested term, I'll use that. And let's say a person, I created my own entity person, can be a customer. And it's a one-to-one relationship. Great. So what you'll notice between these two entities is that one entity has this little italic font. So if an entity doesn't have an italic font, it means that it is an entity from this specific folder. But if it has an italic font, when you hover on it, you will see from which specific glossary it originates. I will open the sales and marketing entity, and I'll see that maybe the definition or the description is not yet defined, and I also don't want to make changes here. And let's say for my specific project, I want to have a specific definition. So what I'll do is I will press on this customer entity and I'll clone it. And what I do now is I create a copy of this entity within my glossary folder. So I'll do that. And now I can make any changes I want freely without worrying that I would actually affect the sales and marketing glossary. All right, and that is our very short and quick demo about the subfolders and subglossaries. There's a really big guide in our documentation, and if you have any questions about these changes, please feel free to ask. We'll continue with the demos. Another thing you may not have heard about is we added model versioning, and we're also going to be adding it to our glossary soon as well. And the idea here is that you can now systematically save previous versions of your models. You can review them, and if some changes have been made that maybe shouldn't exist, you can always revert back to your previous version. So let me open a model I was showing you today, for example, customers and sales orders. I'll press on our advanced menu and we have version history now. And we see a lot of different versions have been made. Some have been auto-created, so they're created after every time there has been a session where people were actually editing the model. So for example, I can see in the previous version somebody added a bank entity. And you can always restore it. So if you realize that, okay, actually this is the correct version of the model, let's actually go to this one. Yeah, so this is the original version of the model. You can then always click and restore this version. And this is already available on your environments for your conceptual, logical, and physical models. There's also another functionality that we've added recently, which is comments. So we added it as a part of our whiteboard release back in the beginning of the summer, but now you can add comments to the rest of your models, adding an extra collaboration layer within Ellie. So there's a comment box on the top bar, and if I move the comment, I'll be able to write a comment, demo comment for the webinar. And essentially, this is a thread, so other people can then join and also comment from their perspective. So say you have a version of a model, you're not yet fully happy, you can in ad hoc discuss the changes or suggest changes, and other people will see. In the future, we also plan to add notifications to this system, so when you'll be able to tag people and notify them about something. There was one more thing I wanted to show quickly. I wanted to cover this. So back in summer, we added a new type of a role within our Ellie environment called a contributor. And the idea here is that it is kind of like a right user, but it can only make new models and make changes within their personal folder. The idea here is that, let's say you have a business person who you don't really want to make any changes in your glossary. You don't want them to actually make changes in your models yet, but you want them to contribute. So if you add them as a contributor user within Ellie, when they open any model in your organization, they'll have this copy and edit button, which they can then copy a model or a glossary term to their personal folder, make changes there, and then share with an admin or a right user for review and approval. And then because we track the lineage from where a model was copied, when you press a publish button as an admin, you will see where the model has originated from, and you will be able to overwrite that original model, kind of like a Git flow as we call it internally. Final thing I wanted to cover is a bit of our product roadmap. So this is kind of where we see Ellie coming in the coming quarters. So we're currently finalizing our Purview integration. We recently added Fabric and Snowflake connectors. There's a Colibra integration we're working on right now. Azure DevOps, as I mentioned, is another work in progress. As we finished our folders and subglossaries, we are adding we're adding an upgrade to our API. So you'll be able to work with many glossaries within Ellie. And then in the future, we'll be working on ways to synchronize entities and models across different layers, entity versioning, ability to work further with metadata and customize metadata, not just in the entity, but also across other artifacts within your Ellie. And there's of course much more. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and ask. That is it from me from the product demo, and I think we can move to our Q&A. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email at stan.dmitriev@ellie.ai.